In today's video, I'm gonna give you everything you need to know to absolutely crush your final interview at the Apple Store and land the job. Let's go. Now in this video, I'm gonna cover several things. First, I'm gonna tell you who it's going to be with, what it's going to be like, the mood of it, and I'm going to give you actual interview questions and the answers to those questions that you're going to experience in your final interview, as well as give you advice from people who have actually been hired by Apple and what they think key differences was between themselves and other candidates in order to get hired. Now, first and foremost, I do want to say that things can vary. I've interviewed a bunch of people who have gotten hired by the Apple Store, and some of them had final interviews that were virtual. Some of them had final interviews where they were in person. Some had final interviews where it was group. And the one we're going to be covering today is the most common final interview with Apple. That is an in-person interview with a store leader or a regional leader who oversees 4 to 5 Apple stores. Now I want to talk about the mood. So most of the time what I have found is that Apple goes out of their way to make you feel more comfortable. They want an environment where you don't feel pressure and they can understand what you're like as a person. So to do that, they kind of lower the pressure of the situation. And all the people that I've interviewed who got offered jobs at the Apple Store and we talked about their final interview, they said this was the case. It could be intimidating because it's a person who's a store leader or a person who's a store leader who also oversees 3, 4, 5 other stores, but they immediately do try to take down the pressure and get you into a conversation that's productive and informative. Now, most of the people I have talked to said the interview starts really on a lighter tone with an easier question. The store leader is going to start talking about themselves and their background, and then they're going to ask you to do the same. So the first interview question you're going to be asked is tell me about yourself. Now, this is a great opportunity for you to share a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you're interested in the role. My advice here is you want to make sure you're efficient. You don't want to blab on forever and talk for 3 minutes about this, but you also don't want this to be a 15-second thing. So my advice is to share a little bit about your background, both professionally, like where you've worked in the past, if you have experience volunteering, or if you have a few other jobs, take them through your job, high-level responsibility, and end with some of your personal interests, ultimately ones that tie you into being a fit for this role. If you can do that, you are going to nail this interview question. Now, the second Apple question is a question you should already be familiar with if you've watched some of my other Apple videos, but it's tell me about your favorite Apple product and 2 features on this. So this is actually a really easy question if you prepare for it. Now, if you don't prepare and on the spot you have to think about it, it could be hard for this to come out smoothly. But for example, let's just say it's the Apple Watch. For me, I would say my favorite product is the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch is great for a lot of reasons, but maybe 2 features I really appreciate is I'm an avid runner. So being able to track my heart rate at different speeds has been highly productive to me. Additionally, I love how well it syncs with my phone. If I'm running and I get a message from my wife, I can actually see it mid-race if I'm doing a marathon, or if I'm getting a message from somebody else, I'm able to easily do that and multitask. Those are 2 features that tie into a hobby, something interesting about me, and quickly and succinctly highlight why this product is exciting to me. So that doesn't have to be your example, but pick something that makes sense to you, works for you, and then choose 2 things and quickly move through them and say the feature and why you find that intriguing. The next question was, tell me about a time that you exceeded a customer's expectations. This is an opportunity question, meaning this is an opportunity for you to look back and tell a story that you're hoping to tell during an interview. Every single person for every single interview they do for the rest of their lives should go into every single interview hoping to tell 4 or 5 stories in which they were previously highly impactful. For a role like this in which you're customer interfacing, you want to make sure that you have stories about times you helped customers, resolved a customer issue, a customer was upset, came to you and fixed it. Whatever this is, you need to pick a time where there was a customer and you clearly went above and beyond your job description to make them a brand advocate, right? You did something that isn't just within your job description, you did something extra and they were wowed by it. They were highly impressed and they ended up feeling great about the service you gave them. Again, this is an opportunity. You want to make sure you take advantage of it. And at the core of this, it should be something that is 1, above and beyond your responsibility, and 2, it really impressed the customer and gave them an amazing experience. The next question was, tell me a time when you were working with a coworker and they were not doing their fair share of work. How did you handle it? Now, this is a behavioral interview question. Any question that starts with, give me an example of, or tell me about a time when, this is a behavioral interview question. So whenever that's the case, you want to use the STAR technique: situation, task, action, result, and when it makes sense, throw an L on the end for lesson. What did you learn? So in this one, situation, where were you working? What was the role? What were you doing? Task. So you were working with someone and they weren't pulling their weight. Action. What did you specifically do in this situation? And then ultimately what was the result? What was the outcome of this? And then if it makes sense, did you learn anything here that was applicable? This is really important to think about this because teamwork is really important to Apple. So what you want to be doing is you want to think of a time back when you were working. There has to be an example of someone who maybe wasn't doing their best. You need to react in a positive way, so you can't be overly upset. You can't ignore it and just do your job. There has to be some sort of resolution that you spearheaded. So maybe it was that you talked to them, you emphasized the importance of it. Maybe, and this is even better, they weren't sure what to do. Maybe they didn't have the skills or the training necessary, so you helped them, get them up to speed, and the result is you were both a more effective team moving forward. But pick something like that, and it is really important not to talk negative about them. You never want to talk negative in an interview if you could avoid it. It does not serve you. Instead, you want to err on the side of positivity. So that is a great way to answer this question. Don't be negative. Show them the outcome. And then if you have a lesson like I learned that is really important to help people, because sometimes when people aren't doing their best or the work they're capable of, it's because they don't have the tools to do so. If you can answer like that, you were gonna crush this interview question. Now the final question, and this is a new one, is tell me about where you see yourself with Apple in the future. And I love this interview question. It is a great question, and it is really important to not look past this role, right? The wrong answer to this is, I'd like to be a store manager and I'd like to be leading all these people. What you want to be doing is viewing this question not in terms of role, but in terms of skill, learning, understanding, and scope of impact. That is way more important just as talking about promotions to them. So maybe you say, well, I could definitely see myself working with a company like Apple because I believe in your mission and I'm such a huge brand advocate. For me, what I see myself doing is learning more about Apple in depth, learning about the products, and learning how to interact and help customers more effectively. Now down the road, I could see myself maybe growing into a lead or a subject matter expert on certain things to increase my ability to help others. This is a great way to answer this question that doesn't make it look like you're looking past the role you're interviewing for, but also gives them something substantive that you're actually working to improve. This is a great way to answer this question. Now, I asked every single candidate for advice. Every person who got hired at the Apple Store, looking back on it, what was a key, what was important, and what are the things you would recommend people who want to get hired at the Apple Store also do? One of the things is you need to be ready to explain. So especially when you're talking about, give me an example of a time when a coworker wasn't pulling their weight, they're probably going to dig in. So you need to be ready. So for example, one of the candidates who got hired said, the manager asked about this, asked about the example, and it was really important for him to communicate, well, how did you talk to this employee? How did you communicate? Were you operating as a good teammate? So whatever the questions they ask you, be ready to back it up. Don't just have surface level answered, but be ready to dig in. The advice I also got from multiple people is to not overthink it. They're not gonna probe too much, and they want you to just be able to explain it so you understand what happened and they can understand your answer. Also, you want to be friendly, you want to be smiling, you want to be interactive, you want to feel approachable. Those are all things. Every time I interview someone who's gotten hired by Apple, they say it over and over and over again. Be yourself, be approachable, be friendly. These are things that are key. I want to leave you with one piece of advice. This is something that the hiring manager said to one of the candidates that was recently hired. He said that they're always learning and they expect that for themselves as well. So this is a store leader and they're saying, hey, look, I'm always learning. I expect my employees to always be learning. That is something they communicated. He also mentioned that they prioritize the customer experience. So what does this tell you? It tells you that when you're in the interview with Apple, what should you be doing? You should be highlighting your hunger for learning. You should be highlighting that in a customer-facing role, it's important to prioritize their experience and make sure they are having their needs met. If you can do these things, they are going to be a huge asset to yourself in getting the job. Now this video is done, but I want you to watch this one. This one is just talking through some of the benefits. If you're watching this video, you are probably gonna get hired because you're gonna nail your interview. Good job, you. High five. But you should watch this because this talks all about the interview. All about the benefits. So all the things that you get from being an Apple employee, really kind of cool. So go check it out.